Video game. So last weekend I mentioned playing a little bit of Metal Gear Solid, Peace Walker, and 3, and I'm back down in that spiral that I sometimes go into. It's the closest thing to like an alcohol addiction I have. Sometimes I'll just start playing these games again after I haven't played them in a long time, and then I'm thinking about them and doing them nonstop, and most of my joy is coming from something related to these games. This week I was doing a lot listening to interviews that Young Ye, check out his YouTube channel, has been doing with different cast members from Metal Gear Solid 5. Interestingly, Metal Gear Solid 5, which is coming out in September, has had very little news lately because Konami's going through this crazy psycho mix-up where they're like shutting down their video game division and they want to do more of like pachinko and gambling, and that's really weird. But unrelated to that, playing more Metal Gear Solid, yeah, listening to interviews with old cast members who aren't even in the newest game. I was watching Super Bunny Hop on his YouTube channel, has all these great analyses videos. He talks about, you know, some things related to Ground Zeroes and the controversial issues related to like rape and child torture and how not very well they're handled, and how, you know, it's strange that Kojima wants the Metal Gear games to be taken more seriously and wants to deal with these serious issues, but he's not actually dealing with them with a very gentle touch. Like, it feels, as someone said, you know, the depictions of rape and torture and this kind of things are like, it's very childish in a way that makes you very uncomfortable, and not in a way where, in retrospect, you're like, oh yeah, wow, that really took me to some interesting places video games have never taken me. It's more of a like, oh, why are you going here when you're not prepared to? It's like watching someone, the only analogy I can think of is if you're doing like a starting creative writing class and someone tries to go to a really dark place that they themselves have never experienced and they just read a story. Actually, I can say, for my playwriting class back in college, I wrote a story that I've thought about the comments that I got from this so often, where I wrote a story about two children who had a very sick mother and they're trying to take care of her. The father's not in the picture, and they're barely getting by, and they have a little house, but it's a shack. Then the mother dies and they're on the street, and I think I was like referencing Grave of the Fireflies or something like that. It's like, oh yeah, that was a really powerful movie. I think the prompt was make something powerful, sad, emotional, whatever. And I had these kids going through, and then one of the other kids gets sick, and then he dies, and it just got worse and worse and worse, and they're crying and talking about, you know, why did mom have to die? And I swear, as I was writing it, I was like, yeah, this is good stuff, this is deep. But in retrospect, looking at it, I do not have the life experience, or I wasn't willing to go to dark and deep enough places to really make this a powerful story, which is to say, I do believe if I did the right research and really invested my time and energy properly, it could have been a good story. But instead, as my professor Kyle Bass said at the time, he kind of paused after I read it out loud in class, and he said, don't you think it's a little too, oh no, like Dickensian? And I'm like, oh, yeah, I guess you're right. Like, and it was. So real quick on Metal Gear Solid Ground Zeroes, I don't think those really delicate issues are being dealt with very deftly right now. So I'm a little nervous about the fandom pain. But to segue into what I actually did this week, playing Metal Gear Solid 2, you know what? The plot lines have always been secondary to me for the Metal Gear games. Like, I think they're a lot of fun, and I watch the cutscenes. I've seen most of the cutscenes in all the games probably a dozen times. And I love unraveling all the little convoluted threads of narrative that go through the whole thing. And even though, God, Kojima needs an editor, I still get pleasure out of it. So that's why I keep in touch with the story and all that. But I think what I enjoy about the Metal Gear games the most is the sandbox quality and the fact that I can play these games for hours and dick around with the soldiers and have new things happen, and it's just a fun world to be in, and it's cool to pretend to be Snake. So this week I played with the HD collection again, or the complete collection, Metal Gear Solid 2, which I haven't played in a few years, and it's interesting. This is the first time ever for the Metal Gear Solid series that I found myself playing the game for a while and not really having fun. And it kind of got me thinking, why am I not enjoying myself? Is it just because I've done this stuff too much? And I think it's because all the games after Metal Gear Solid 2 improved on the gameplay so much that it's really tough to go back to something that's feels really stilted by comparison now. Like Metal Gear Solid, the original, I can still play that and enjoy it because A, it's short, B, it's not that hard, and C, it almost has like the quality that you might describe for some Atari games or something like that, where because of the constraints and the restrictions it had, you're okay with, you know, the limitations of how it works. So yeah, it's awkward to have guys be off screen in the original Metal Gear Solid that you can't see and they might see you. But it's totally fine, and I can get through that game really quick. Metal Gear Solid 2 feels difficult, and there are scenes like I just finished I went from the beginning of the plant chapter to finishing the bomb disposal stuff, and it just wasn't that fun playing it for, I guess, the fourth time. Some of it is the camera stuff, the fact that it's really awkward to be able to look around, and ever since Metal Gear Solid 3 finally gave you a movable camera, it's really difficult to not have that anymore. The plot line is incredibly meta, and I'm not talking about the plot line at all, just the gameplay. First of all, you're playing as Raiden before he becomes a super cool, awesome cyborg ninja, so that's not that fun. You'd always rather be playing as Snake. And the plant is not a very interesting level. Like, even the original Metal Gear Solid, there's snow, and there's some interesting indoor things and different interesting outdoor things, and it feels actually a little bit more open than everything does at the plant in Metal Gear Solid 2. And there's so much backtracking and going back to all these struts, and all the struts are exactly the same size, and the designs are very similar, and it's just not very interesting. So yeah, it's the first time I'm looking at any of the Metal Gear Solid games and kind of rethinking how I feel about it. So this kind of goes back to my whole confidence rating thing. It shattered my confidence. So Metal Gear Solid 2, for now, I'm giving it all the way down to 3 stars. All the other Metal Gear games for me are like 5 stars. So 3 stars with a confidence of 2, because I don't know anymore.